stream started here. Okay, so I'm on. Everything's good. All right. All right, so I wanted to make sure we had enough time to cover all of this tonight because I'm not going to do as much talking as I normally would. And I can do plenty of talking, but I'm trying to limit myself tonight because I want to let other people have a voice tonight that you have not had a chance to hear from before. So, first of all, from my friend Grace, I wanted to share this thank you card to the church. It says, to all Doorway Baptist Church members, greetings to you all in Jesus Christ. Thank you so much for your generous support and prayers. We are happy to be part of your people. Be blessed all, Mogan Grace. And I'm going to put that up on the missions board there in the back. Here's how I want to start things tonight. What do red beans and rice, theological education, Doorway Baptist Church, and missional evangelism all have in common with each other? You don't have to answer that question. My goal is to answer that question for you as we go through this tonight. That's what I want to talk about. Tonight what I want to do is I want to kind of give you a field report about what Sarah and I had the chance to experience over the course of a couple weeks in Jinja, Uganda. For me, this was my third trip to the city. This was Sarah's first time in the continent of Africa, first time in Uganda, and I kind of think she was on vacation a little bit because she just seemed to be having fun no matter what. I'm teaching and spending all day preparing notes and lessons and things like that, and she's getting to explore the city and, that kind of stuff. So if you have seen some of these pictures before, then you'll understand that, Africa is a very different place than America. A lot of abject poverty that's going on. This is just kind of a couple quick snapshots of the city where we're in. This is Jinja. This is the only really good road running through the city because once you turn off of this road, good luck. We actually busted the front shocks on my friend's car going to Busede for one of our seminars, and then we had to try to work on getting that repaired. So if that tells you anything. But what's so funny is as much poverty as there exists in the city, there's a ton of beauty. This is at the top of the hill overlooking the city of Jinja, and you can see Lake Victoria, with the second largest lake in all the world. It feeds the Nile River. And this lake goes on what seems like forever. I mean, you can drive from Jinja all the way to Entebbe, which takes you like 3 hours, and you still can see the lake. And it still keeps going, shared with Kenya and Tanzania. So, just to give you kind of an idea. But in this time that we spent here in Jinja, Uganda, I spent, for the most part, 2 weeks teaching at the seminary. Sarah did a ladies' devotional that she'll talk about here in a moment. I had the chance to preach in 2 different churches. We did a worship seminar in Busede, which is where we broke the shocks on the car. We visited the Computer Training Center. We visited the Mogan Foundation Center. And then we also had the chance to visit my friend Glennis, who has just opened up a brand new hospital called the Glen Z Dignity Hospital there. So we were not on vacation, just to clarify. But first I want to introduce you to some of my friends. So this is Isaac and Arena, and they just had their daughter, Jaleesa. She's about, I want to say 3 months old now, a little over 3 months old, about 4 months by the time everything's settled now. This was us at the Nile River. I wanted us to have a chance to all do something together, fun. You just got to take a break every so often. All work and no play kind of thing. But they have been dear friends to me. Isaac was the whole reason that this even got started way back in 2017, where we started having conversations over Facebook. That's Jaziel. He got all jazzed up. It was his first time on the Nile River. It was so incredible to watch him. He just sat there like the whole time. And then he finally said, "Where is God?" That's how just blown away this little kid was of seeing something in his own hometown that magnificent. But he's funny. He still calls me Mzungu, but we're working on that. We're trying to get him to say Uncle Chris, but it hasn't worked out too yet. This is Grace and Rita, and oldest daughter. They've got another one on the way. We found out later while we were there. Kind of a little known secret for them. And then, so he's the one that's in charge of the Mogan Grace Foundation, the one who's been helping me, the shoe ministry. I've got some of these things on display up front where they've, just to show you different things that they've made, different ways that they've learned how to make them. They're teaching all these life skills to people to be able to basically make a living. In the back, that's Glennis. That's our friend from the land down under. She is never married, no kids, and she is adopted by Pastor David, who you'll see in just a second. She decided, I don't want to live in Australia anymore, packed her bags, sold everything, moved to Uganda, and this is where she's going to be until the day she goes home to be with the Lord. So she's the one that just opened up a hospital. So don't let anybody ever tell you it's too late to start doing some kind of new ministry. And this is Pastor David. Pastor David was the founding pastor at Divine Love Church. He has now turned over the main teaching authority to Pastor Robert because Pastor David is now a lawyer and a local politician on top of being a pastor. He's a very, very entrepreneurial man, so he's got his hand in a lot of different things. But this is just to kind of introduce you to some of these people. The reason I took Sarah this time is because I wanted her to have a chance to get to know some of these ladies. My friends, Irina and Rita, they kept asking, when are we going to get to meet her? They wanted to be in contact. So, we finally had the chance. Everybody got to get together. Everybody got to see each other. And so Sarah's been able to build those, deep friendships. This is Rita there at the store. My friend Grace, the way he supports himself is he runs this little shop. They make photocopies. They sell stationery. They do little odds and ends. If they can find a way to make $1 or some shillings off of it, that's what they're going to do. Very entrepreneurial. Because the first thing that a lot of these people think of when they wake up in the morning is, okay, how will I get the money to feed my family today? It's a day-to-day thing for them. For us, I just went and bought a bunch of groceries, and I threw them all in the fridge and the freezer. They're going, okay, I have to buy today what I'm going to eat today, because if it can't sit out, then I can't keep it. Because a lot of them don't have refrigerators. Now, thankfully, they've been able to move into a new house where they now have one, but most of these people don't. So what I want to share, though, is talking about some of these events that we were involved in, but I really want to spend the last few minutes, or the last several minutes, talking about Uganda Baptist Seminary. That's really the thrust of what I want to talk about tonight, because there's a lot more to understand about UBS than what you may think of initially. As we got ready to leave, we had four full check bags, thanks to David's help and getting a couple extra bags. Only 2 of those were our stuff. The other 2 was everything else we were taking to donate, or people had bought, asked us to pick up while we were here because it's cheaper to buy things in America and take it over there and so forth. Just to give you an idea, we had a carry-on full of books, we had an electric guitar, we had 2 fully packed backpacks. We ended up taking microphones, books, electronics, computer equipment, 6 laptops, and gifts. We were mules, and it's okay. We enjoyed it, sort of. The first thing we did after getting a little bit of sleep is I had the chance to preach at Divine Love Church the first Sunday. We did 2 services there. They have an 8:30 service, and then they have a 10:30 service. So what I decided to do this time, and I'm always nervous about when I go to the churches there and preach, because the last thing I want to do is preach an American sermon where it has no application to them. So I ended up preaching this sermon that I'd done before called The Gospel According to Jonah, talking about Jonah's attitude, the whole issue there. We've all read through the book. Pastor Beck has preached on it already. But the biggest thing I tried to emphasize was God's grace is amazing. I just kept saying that over and over and over again. So I took them through the whole book. I didn't read it word for word, but paraphrasing section by section, I pointed out every instance of where you can see how God's grace was truly amazing, where he doesn't kill Jonah, where he, spares the sailors, where he sees the great revival in Nineveh, and so on and so forth. And what's amazing is every time I've had a chance to preach over there, I always walk away encouraged, because they come to me and they say, that's exactly what we needed to hear. I'm like, okay, that's a God thing. Has nothing to do with me. It's amazing to see how that all works out. So I'm grateful that I haven't yet messed that up and preached something totally American that doesn't relate to them at all, doesn't apply to them whatsoever. We also got to visit the computer center and the Mogan Foundation Agency. And so some of these things you're going to get to see tonight are videos where people have already put some of this stuff together for me. I don't have to say it all. I don't have to, spit out a whole bunch of words to you. You can see it and hear it for yourself. So this is when we first had the chance to go to the computer training center. This is where these got about a dozen computers all set up. They're not brand new. They're all, stuff that we would probably have donated and sent to Goodwill, but they keep them running because they're teaching people how to use certain kinds of software so that they can get jobs in that particular market, whether it's accounting or whether it's in a medical office or something like that. So that's one of the things that Grace is involved in. Sarah had a chance to do a devotional time at the Mogan Foundation, which she'll talk about in just a moment. But first I want you to see this video here. Yep, there we go. So,
Well, I got to know the Mogan Foundation in 2022. I had just come back for my second trip to Africa, teaching trip with Alpha Worship Connection, and Isaac had connected me with Morgan Grace, and I got a chance to get to know him, get to know the foundation, which had really just started as teaching with computer help and so forth, and then getting a chance to see the shoe ministry and everything that's involved in that. So our journey's only been about a couple of years now, but just in those couple of years, we've been able to see the ministry expand outside of simply doing computer training and even the shoe ministry, but it's begun to develop into other things like sewing and electrical help and Bible studies even. But even just each of those different areas of ministry, we've been able to see growth in those areas. They've been able to get sewing machines to help these women and men that are wanting to learn how to do this. They've been able to secure a building, which has been a huge help, and to see the foundation grow, and also just to have more people coming to the foundation to learn these life skills, to help them be able to have the skills to do the things that are going to help them make an income, a living, that'll then help them sustain themselves and their families. Physical growth that's happened, the way the lives have been changed by this ministry, the location change, a lot of those extra things that have gone into seeing that ministry, and the people every time that I've had a chance to be a part of it, to see it, to experience it, to have my wife be a part of it for a brief time, the people have always been so welcoming and warm and just grateful that we're interested in them and that we want to invest in their lives through the Mogan Foundation. About what Mogan Foundation is accomplishing is, with all of these things that they're trying to teach them, with all these different life skills, the most important aspect, their spiritual lives, is presented, and they spend time presenting the gospel to them in these devotional moments and inviting them to Bible study and providing resources, as we've been trying to start doing now, with a small library of resources to help them understand what the gospel is, how to grow in Christ, as they develop these life skills to be better in their own life, not just the physical, but also looking at and trying to minister to the spiritual. I think the two biggest highlights for me are the fact that we got to see the Young Hall, the building that they're using right now, because I know where they used to be located, which is such a dramatic change from where they had started. That shows a significant growth and change for them. The second thing is, as people that I know have had a chance to physically get involved and invest financially into the ministry to provide some of the sewing machines that are helping all these people with the shoemaking, that was a real highlight, to be able to actually come and see them and how they're now being used to help change these people's lives.
So, as I said before, Sarah had the chance to give the devotional on Thursday of that week. And I'll let her tell you a little bit about that real quick, because I don't want to steal her thunder. But okay.
Well, they asked me to come and speak about marriage. And I was thinking, okay, so what do I say? And then I decided to talk about creation and how God created Adam and Eve, how God created marriage to be. And so I spent a lot of time studying, Genesis, and then I was able, actually, I wrote the devotion in March, actually. And then I was able to do all of that. And I didn't realize, I don't know what I was thinking, I kind of thought that it was going to be at a church. I was going to be giving a devotion in a room with a bunch of ladies at a church. That's what I thought. But what ended up happening was I gave a devotion at the foundation. And the foundation was, it wasn't just church people there. It wasn't just Christians. And, they welcome everybody there. So there was people in the crowd that Muslims were in the crowd, that day. And I got to talk about, when you talk about Adam and Eve and marriage, and then you have to talk about the fall, and you have to talk about the doctrine of original sin, and Jesus. So those Muslims got to hear about Jesus. So anyway, I was really really excited about that. So
And so, as we got the chance to spend some time with them, I wish they would have taken advantage of her a little bit more because she had plenty of other lessons ready that she had been working on. But this is one of the older sewing machines that they were using originally. It's all manual, and then they've been able to now upgrade to the newer ones. We had some people here that helped to secure these for us, which is a huge help. Like I said, the whole what is the beans and rice thing, this is how they pay for beans and rice. They find a way to make something that they can sell so they can live. And now they're getting into things like tailoring. They're doing electrical work now. I just got told this week they had their first student register for the national certification in electric installation there at the center. Because he's learned the skill there, he can now go then get his certification and then actually be hired and contracted to do electrical work in a residence. So it's, it looks insignificant, but it's profound for them. It's literally life-changing and life-altering. The shoes have gone through tremendous changes. I've got some examples up here. Everything from your basic, plain Jane kind of shoe, which, I just say basic because of its design, to this newer style now that they're doing where they can do embossing and imprinting. Obviously, these are more expensive because they're using real leather here as opposed to the faux leather, but it just shows you that they're trying to find ways to enhance this stuff and to get better at it. They always walk people through how to make a shoe with manila, like we would call cardstock. You got to learn how to make a shoe with cardstock before they let you use the real stuff. Otherwise, you end up ruining the real stuff, and then that becomes a very expensive lesson. So that's kind of how they walk them through that process. But we've got a lot of people that are coming to this each and every week. In fact, this guy on the right, he was so grateful to get to meet us and to get to hear and to experience what's going on, that and here's the front of the building. Yes, they named it after us because we have been investing in their ministry. So just kind of there, I said, why in the world would you name a building after us? It's like, because you actually cared. You actually cared, and you actually invested, and you helped us to get to this level, and that's why. So this is one of the men. You might have to turn this one up a little bit, Christian, but he just wanted to say thank you to the church for just being a part of even just the prayer support and all this.
Praise God, church. We thank you for your support towards us. Here in Uganda, we love God. We love you people in America, in US. We love you so much. We thank you that you have been good to us.
What happened?
Praise
There we go.
God, church. We thank you for your support towards us. Here in Uganda, we love God. We love you people in America, in US. We love you so much. We thank you that you have been good to us in all your support. We thank you very, very, very much. May God bless you.
So then Saturday and Sunday we went to Busede, where we broke the shocks on the car. But it was such a great time. This was a church that I had been to before, and we got to go back. That's a big deal. This pastor at Busede Miracle Center loves Isaac and the ministry so much, he wants us to come back every single time I'm in country. He wants us to continue to invest in his people, and I'll actually show you a video of him in just a second. But we had our worship seminar. This was Saturday's gathering. Pretty decent crowd of people. One of the ways we help get people to come is we offer to feed them lunch, which, can you guess what we give them? Rice and beans. Or posho, or matoke, which we had plenty of matoke, which is, it's amazing potatoes. But anyway, I'll digress because I already missed the food. Isaac is very faithful as he does a lot of this teaching on his own at times. He just finished a 2-day ministry where he had to travel back and forth each day. The ministry is growing. His ministry is growing, I should say. And more people from outside the Jinja area are asking him to come to teach on biblical worship. So I can see his growth personally, and I can see the ministry's growth firsthand. It's a wonderful thing to watch. The seminary is also a way we're able to establish some more connections as well. So this is Saturday. We ended up having a really good crowd of people, very gracious people. and get to share with them. I taught 2 different sessions: the mind of worship, the heart of worship. You can't worship if you don't have your mind in the right place. You can't worship if you don't have the right object of worship. We can have a lot of different objects and they be the wrong object of worship and so forth. Talked about those things. So what Isaac tries to do to promote the ministry and to show, it's kind of a barometer for him of like what's going on. Are people actually learning through the ministry? So he ends up doing testimony videos, and we had 2 people do a testimony video. The first one that you'll see is a church member, and then the second one is the pastor of Bucetti Miracle Center.
Amayina gange ninze Isiko Steven nga nkungaania mu Miracle Center Journey of Life Ministries. Omusumba wange ni Musumba Tofa Lukwagana. Okusooka lanze neebaza Musumba Isaka ne olw'obuweereza buno bwatukozeemu, kubanga okubita mu buweereza buno bwagiire ng'atutraininga ayidayo tuli baatuleeta seminars ebigemagana n'okusinza. Kinkoze omulimu kubanga yayidde yayegeresa ku kigambo kirala kye ndi kujja okwogera ku kyali ekigambo okusinza niki. Ekigambo okusinza yali ali traininga yakaaja okusinza titusinza mu kwemba kwonka ayina okuba nti tugulumiza Katonda buli kye tukola kyona kyona, oba kigambo oba bikolwa oba nnambala oba ndogera, buli kye tukola kyona kyona kibe nga kisinza Katonda. Mu mazima mu buweereza buno bwagire nga tukola bugire nga bukyusa obulamu bwaife ng'Abakristaayo, ate at the same time bw'atuweereza mu Katonda n'okutambula ng'ekyokubonerako eri ensi yonoona nti abalokolera abaana ba Katonda. Aye nga ekituleeta ekyo n'obuweereza buno bwagire nga tukola mu mulimu ku bigambo bino byajja nga tuyininga okusinza. Aye nekyo ntitusigaye n'ekirala, era tuyinza okubasaba nti bya byonna mujje mu maaso omufamu mulimu kuno Mukama abaweereza. Mwebale.
His comments are directly reflecting upon what we had taught them on Saturday there during the worship seminar. And then this one is of the pastor.
Amaina gange nize Christopher Lukwagana mu kanisa ndi musumba. Nze ndulira obuweereza buno nti ddala ife ng'abakulembeze eno mu kitundu mu zooni yaffe Busede tuweerebwa omukisa okubita mu Musumba Isaac kituufu, kubanga bwe tuyambye mu church ababe bayigiriza abantu lwaki twanditendereza Katonda, y'okutendereza niki, kyatuyamba okuba nga kituguluminga awamu n'ekkanisa yona awalala, nti omuntu anjira mu kutendereza ngaidi kyajja okutendereza nga tikalinga kalombolombo, tikulinga kwemba kwa balala, wabula okutendereza nga tulitendereza oyo Katonda eyatonda eggulu n'ensi, n'ife nga tuli ebimu ku bitonde ebyatondebwa ye. Ffe tukoba nti tuweerebwa omukisa, era tusaba nti obuweereza buno busigale nga bujja mu maaso, kubanga bwidda tukola mu bulungi, bwidda kwongerayo omulimu mu maaso, naddala mu makanisa gaife eno mu kyalo eno ye tuli mu zooni Busede eno, kidda sigala nga kitwongerayo mu maaso. Era awo we tusabira nti emisomo gino gyandisigaire nga gijja mu bungi, buli mwaka at least tufuneyo ku emisomo egiswika 2 ekitone ino.
He wants us to come back every year if possible. On Sunday, I got to preach at Arena's dad's church. Arena's dad pastors a Methodist church just down the street from Divine Love. Let me see if you see anything different about the way they worship. It's not just the worship team. It's the whole congregation. So then we got the chance to go to the hospital with my friend Glennis. This is Glen Z Dignity Hospital. There's a reason why they came up with the name, but I don't want to get into all that right now. It's kind of a combination of two different people's names. But so they've got ambulances. They just had their first baby born at this hospital the week we were there. They're barely opened up, and they've already had a birth. This was a rundown hospital that was abandoned. They have renovated almost all of it. They're still continuing to work on it and open this up, because in this community, this was a dire need for this area. And this was Glennis's heart in wanting to do this. In fact, you'll hear me say this more than once, and I've already said this since I got back. Short-term trip, long-term consequences. That's how this all got started with Glennis. She went on a mission trip to Uganda, and now she lives there. So I don't know what that means for me, but anyway. So we're touring the hospital. There's several buildings. They're all being renovated, like I said, and they're trying to work on making this a good and just a wholesome campus where they can minister to people's needs physically. She is wanting to get to the point where she could start offering medical mission trips for people to come in and help them with medical missions at some point. But like I said, the real focus that I wanted to have was on Uganda Baptist Seminary. This is where rubber meets the road a little bit for us, is Southern Baptist, because I want you to hear from some people that have been here, that are going here, and well, you may not realize you're actually helping them in some ways that you may not know about. So here's a brief tour of the campus, kind of the open courtyard area where a lot of people spend some time, play games, that kind of thing. One of the big classrooms that I taught in, this is across from our apartment there, the opening area, the front part where the gate's at and so forth. That's another one of the classrooms there. It feels like you're teaching in a sauna because there's just these little oscillating ceiling fans, or they're not ceiling fans, they're like stand fans mounted to the side of the wall, and then, yeah. And it's 80 degrees all year round and high humidity, and, it's interesting. Sometimes we get local wildlife that comes in for a visit. I heard something crawling around on the roof of our apartment and crawling around the roof of the administration building, and I went and go look, and it's a monkey. They don't try to bother anybody. They're just curious, and they might be looking for scrap food or something, but that's where they're located. They're in Jinja. This is an IMB, International Mission Board Seminary. Unfortunately, it's the only one left. There used to be several. International Mission Board ended up shutting a lot of them down. Frost, who was the director at the time, fought tooth and nail to keep this one open. It's been going for over 30 years now. Dr. Anthony Shelton is the one who's been there for the last 18 years, and you'll see him in one of the videos here in a moment. But him and his wife Misty, they're the kind of the ones in charge. The IMB missionary who is running the seminary, the main ones there. So, rather than try to give you the whole history of it, I found out they have already made their own videos. So, check this out.
Our gracious God is raising up men and women leaders to serve the people of God and to be a shining light to the lost in sub-Saharan Africa. Uganda Baptist Seminary is a place where these leaders can be equipped with biblical truth, develop ministry skills, and network with others serving in God's kingdom in East Africa. At UBS, the unfailing Word of God remains central to every part of the programs of study and application. The sharing of these truths to our students deepens and sharpens their ministry on the values of eternity. Uganda Baptist Seminary was founded over 30 years ago and is a ministry of the Baptist Mission of Uganda, of the International Mission Board, and Southern Baptist Convention, alongside the Baptist Union of Uganda. God has greatly been at work at UBS. The school has grown from graduating less than 10 students in its first class to having over 250 students attend every year. Today, Uganda Baptist Seminary is an accredited institution that serves brothers and sisters across East Africa. Our students represent Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, the Congo, South Sudan, and of course, Uganda. We serve students of a variety of denominations. Additionally, our students include men and women, young and old, urban and rural, and everything in between. We offer varying levels of education, including certificate, diploma, bachelor's, and even a master's of theology in partnership with Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary, located in the U.S. From the basics to the complex, we want to foster biblical literacy and understanding that can empower leaders to ignite an African Reformation that will radiate throughout the continent. We envision the true gospel going forth to the ends of the earth. We envision Africans being sent to Africans. We want justice for those being deceived and taken advantage of by false teachers. We want to protect the weak, poor, and uneducated by raising leaders that teach truth and live like disciples. We are Uganda Baptist Seminary, and this is our story.
And so here's more about what they're doing. This kind of gives you the breakdown of the programs and
God
how they learn.
called me
and so
to
forth.
come and study at Uganda Baptist Seminary. UBS made me to get to know clearly how to go through God's Word. I do believe that before I get started to study the Word of God, I was handling the Word of God the way I would just feel.
We are Bible-based. We were intentional with expository teaching and letting the Bible answer the questions that people have. And more often than not, when a question comes, the first thing you'll hear is, what does the Bible say?
We have 3 levels of classes. The first one is certificate class. Certificate class has an entry at Form 4. The certificate class goes for 8 terms. Each term has 4 weeks of residence, and then they come 3 times in a year, and it will take them 8 terms to finish. That's close to about 2.5 years to complete their course. Then the next level is the diploma level. Diploma level also take the same time, 8 terms to finish their course, and they have to come for 4 weeks of residence for a term, and so that will take them 2.5 years to complete their course. Their entry level is after Form 4, they have to do other 2 classes. That takes them to Form 6, and they should have passed the Form 6, and in Uganda we say they have 1 principal pass and at least a subsidiary that will qualify them to have an entry into diploma class. The next level is a BTH, that's a Bachelor of Theology. A Bachelor of Theology, somebody must have done Form 6 and at least scored or achieved 2 principles at minimum. And then bachelor's takes 11 terms. 11 terms extends to about 3.5 years for them to complete. And so following like term, each term is 4 weeks of residence, and they come 3 times in a year.
There are not many places in Uganda that can do what Uganda Baptist Seminary is doing. This is a place for life change, and not just personal life change, but it's the change that goes with you to change other people. That is what I have realized. It's a school that is not here to make money from people, but to impact that godly knowledge, where I have seen actually in classes a school that is committed to communicating God's truth, and it is that truth that changes, and that truth is hard to find in other places.
It's the place that when you come, you know that you're going to get the Word of God, that you are able to read for yourself and not giving you someone's opinion and enforcing you to believe something that cannot be verified. It can be verified because you hold the Bible in your hand and we point it to you and say, we believe this and teach this because you can read it here. And that's the great thing that I normally tell people. Just come and you know that you're going to get the Word of God. It's life transforming. It's neat to see those who for the first time coming and then the last day here leaving, and they're completely new people.
So let me give you an example of one of these guys, as Dr. Shelton's had a chance to invest personally into this man.
It's often said here in East Africa that Christianity is a mile wide but only an inch deep. A lot of our pastors and church leaders can be swept away through storms and various things. So we want to give them a solid foundation so they'll be able to resist bad theology and aberrant doctrine. Whatever comes their way, they'll be prepared. Jesus said, go and make disciples. And as you're making disciples, teach them to observe all things. And that's not a simple process. Jesus had a lot to say and a lot to see. We feel like we're teaching these students who Jesus is and all that involves. George Mbonye is one of those students who I met many years ago. I try to visit him, try to facilitate him in any way I can to further along his ministry.
I met Anson in 1995. He is my first best friend. And I don't count Anson as a missionary. I count Anson as a family friend. When I have challenges, we could pray together. When Anson have challenges, we could pray together. We grew together like that.
He's very bright and he's gifted as a teacher. His passion is training and education, all levels from the children to the adults.
I'm trying to reach Congo, DRC, and in Rwanda so that we can I can train these people so that they can know how to preach, they can know how to study the Bible, they can know the basics to stand within the Bible.
It's an extraordinary opportunity the school has to train en masse church leaders so that they can immediately take what they've learned back to their church, back to their community. We rely on them and they rely on us. We're leaning on each other and using our gifts that God has given us to further the kingdom here. I don't think Americans are going to reach sub-Saharan Africa. They're not going to complete this task. It'll be the Africans. My best strategy for that is to train Africans to be mature believers, mature leaders in the church.
So I had the chance to then be a part of that. I had 2 weeks with 15 students, just basically standing in a hot box and talking a lot. And I'll be brief with what I'm sharing with this. But I had 10 students in my Gospel of Mark class, and I had 5 students in my 1 Peter class. And I have testimonies from each of those students, which I don't have time to share those tonight. I'll probably put them on Facebook if you'd like to get a chance to see those. But this was an incredible opportunity. We went verse by verse through the book of 1 Peter, phrase by phrase. Mark, we couldn't do that as much. We had to kind of go event by event because we had to cover 16 chapters in 2 weeks. But the testimonies that you'll get a chance to hear, like I said, I'll put them online because I really want you to have a chance to hear them. They send in these videos to me, some of my students. What they were able to get out of the class. It wasn't to pump me up. It was simply to help you understand this is some of the stuff that we did. I mean, you would think, okay, I did this in Sunday school, or yeah, I've done this in a Wednesday night Bible study here. But this was profound for them. This was a game changer for them. A couple of the students actually said, I could actually take these notes and go home and teach this to my people. That's exactly the reason why we did this way. Did like a running commentary through the books. And some of these pastors couldn't wait to go home and then to begin to start sharing this with other people. Some of them invited me to come preach at their churches, and I wasn't able to because it was kind of a in-the-moment invitation. I was like, well, my schedule's booked. But it was incredible to see how serious they were about their education, how much of a need there is in East Africa to get sound theological education. I mean, we ripped the prosperity gospel to shreds with 1 Peter. And that was common questions we were coming up with and having to discuss. Issues with prosperity gospel and word of faith movement. But these are sweet people that love the Lord, love the gospel, love to learn, and they just enjoy themselves while they're there. You know, this was that's Jennifer. I'll put her online. That's Gabriel. He was in my Mark class. Both of them were in my Mark class. And then that's Ivan. The kind of joke with him is we yell at each other for fun, but it's kind of an inside joke thing. And then this is Ronald. Ronald was also there in my Mark class. Each of these this guy traveled 17 hours one way to get home. And he's coming back and forth for these modulars for seminary. I met another student who was trying to teach me French because he's in the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. And he's French speaking, and it took him 2 days. 3 days, I'm sorry, 3 days. So this is a sacrifice for them that they're putting in all this travel to do this. But this was the closing chapel worship service. Just a little bit of what we got to experience. See Jennifer's up there. She's helping with the worship team. She's in her Mark class. She actually lives in Jinja, and she's wanting to do women's ministry. That's why she's training at the seminary also. The greatest encouragement that I want you to hear before we leave tonight is they did not know where the funding was coming from for the seminary, the students. When I started to talk about Lottie Moon and the offering that is given every year by SBC churches to help support the IMB, which in turn helps support Uganda Baptist Seminary, my classroom erupted with applause. And they said, please go home and tell your church thank you for giving to that offering. Because it helps to subsidize the tuition that they have to pay to come and train. It costs 510,000 shillings per term, which in US is about $136. 11 terms for the bachelor's program, do the math, you would pay $1,500, a little over $1,500, about $1,540, and you could send a student through the entire bachelor's program. All of it. You can't do that in America. It's incredible, the generous donors that are helping to fund this seminary. And like I said, it's the only one of its kind in the world. And it's in a prime place of real estate where, I mean, God's doing something in Africa that is phenomenal, and it's spreading like wildfire. And the fact that these are solid people with solid theological educations that are investing in these people and inviting others, to come as a guest teacher. If you can afford your way there, they will let you teach, as long as you're Orthodox, of course, and invest in these students because they teach like 230-something courses a year, and Dr. Shelton and Eric Lockhart, my other friend, they can't do it all by themselves. And some of the other faculty that you saw, they can't. I mean, there's like 5 or 6 different people that can teach that are there all the time. Eric's not there because of his wife dealing with leukemia, which is another story for later I can tell you more about offline. But, so it's a lot of work, and they're constantly needing help. They're constantly asking for help. So let me answer the question, and we'll be done. What does Red Beans and Rice, Theological Education, Doorway Baptist Church, and Missional Evangelism have in common? This church has had a direct hand in supporting overseas ministries that have helped to put food on people's tables, help train them in spiritual things, help evangelize the nations of East Africa, all by allowing a couple from your church to take a couple weeks out of the year to go and invest, teach, share, learn, and be a physical part of the growing work that God is doing. And as we've been studying and experiencing God together, this is a part of what God is doing right now in the world. And we are thrilled to be a part of that and to partner with Him. And I hope we have more opportunities to do it. I wish I could go more than once a year if finances would allow, if time would allow. And we have you to thank for the support in a myriad of different ways. Maybe you didn't go, but there are a lot of people that need to be thanked for allowing us to be able to go. Because your investment, whether it was financial or prayer, has allowed this ministry to happen in these 2 weeks in June. So thank you for helping us to make this a possibility, for having an opportunity to then invest in these pastors. It was so rewarding to be able to send them out and say, okay, now as you have learned, go, teach, train, evangelize, equip. So I'm missing my brothers from other mothers, as we have called ourselves. But I want to let Isaac have the closing word, and then I'll close in prayer.
From Uganda, and greetings from Alpha Worship Connection. We are privileged that last month we were able to host Chris Young again. It was an amazing time to see him teach pastors at Uganda Baptist Seminary and training worship leaders and pastors through Alpha Worship Connection. It's amazing that this relationship has grown through the seminary where Chris has been teaching. We see that connection is developing now. Alpha Worship Connection is spreading, connecting with other pastors from different locations of Uganda. Thank you, Doorway Baptist Church, for letting Chris Young come each time, each year in Uganda, and to work with us. Thank you for that heart, and we pray the Lord bless you and bless you indeed. We appreciate your support towards Chris and us. We appreciate your prayers always. Thank you, thank you. And may God bless you and bless you indeed.
Father, thank you for just an opportunity to share and to let other people see what you are doing in the world. Lord, this is about you, not about us. Lord, how you have allowed this seminary to be there, to continue to train these men and women as they want to invest in their local churches, in villages across the country of Uganda and other nations in East Africa. God, it's phenomenal to see what's going on through the simple act of just being present and sharing what others have learned and training them to understand the Bible better. Lord, they are constantly assaulted by false doctrine, false teachers, those who want to use the Bible as a tool, as a means to gain power and control and prestige. Lord, I'm thankful for those that are training at UBS that do not see theology and theological education as a platform to make something of themselves. But Lord, they have a heart and a compassion for their own people. They want to see disciples being made. And Lord, as Dr. Shelton has already said, I believe with him that it's going to be Africans that are reaching Africans. Lord, as the gospel continues to spread, that you would use UBS in a mighty way. Lord, as our churches give to support the Lottie Moon offering that helps to in turn support this seminary, Lord, even if we get involved in other ways, I pray that you will continue to use that small place there in Jinja as a continued beacon of the gospel, that as those lives are transformed through their theological education, that, Lord, it just creates mature disciples that continue to make other disciples. Lord, just thank you so much that we've been able to be even a small part of that, just to hear about it, just experience a little bit of it. Thank you so much. Lord, use us as you would see fit to do that in other places, whether it's here at home or across the world. Thank you for this time, Lord.